Hello and welcome back to the Everything F1 podcast with Sean and Coops. And joining us this evening, if you're listening as soon as we upload it, it's in the middle of the night because it's Vegas this weekend and everything happens in the middle of the night in Vegas. And joining us to preview the Vegas Grand Prix, joining us once again are James, good evening.
Good evening. Looking forward to chatting more F1.
And Sean, Sock, welcome back to again. Are you going to be staying up all night long watching Vegas this weekend?
No, I have a 2-year-old. Sleep is paramount. I'll be watching it as soon as she wakes at about 7:30.
You're not going to set her as an alarm to wake you up at 4 in the morning?
No, no, thank you.
If you're mad enough to be awake at 4 o'clock in the morning to watch this race this weekend, then all power to you. But I think the smart money is probably on the replays this weekend, unless you're like our man over on the West Coast, Larry, and you're actually able to watch it live. In which case, good for you. I suppose this is the time of the year where we get our comeuppance and we have to have the awkward times, and it has to happen once a year. It's just, why couldn't they just have this on a Sunday? It's just such a strange time. Anyway, we are Everything F1. You'll find us on all socials at Joining F1 on Facebook, Instagram, X, and Threads, or at EF1 Official on TikTok. You can also check out our website, everythingf1.com, for daily news and articles about all things motorsport. And we would absolutely love it if you're not already to head over to our YouTube channel, Everything F1, all one word. Hit subscribe over there. Join us over there. Hit the notification bell to get notified when we upload new content. And just by subscribing, you will be into our competition to win a Lego Speed Champions F1 set as soon as we hit 500 subscribers. So head over Everything F1, all one word on YouTube, and hit subscribe there. Now then, the Las Vegas Grand Prix. It's been on the calendar now for a couple of years. It takes place at what they creatively call the Las Vegas Strip Circuit, which looks like Spider Pig being held up on the roof. If you haven't seen that before, you'll never unsee that again. Sorry about that. The circuit is 3.85 miles or 6.21 kilometers. There's 17 turns, and the race lap record is currently held by Lando Norris from last year. Now, when this first came onto the calendar a few years ago, boy, did we mock it and mire it and think that it was a silly cash grab, which Formula One actually pay for. Vegas don't pay for this. Formula One pay Vegas for this. And it felt really soulless and really awful, and the track looked crap. But, Coops, we've had two good Grand Prix here.
We have indeed, yes.
What's your opinions on the Las Vegas Strip Circuit?
Well, if you're going to do a street circuit, you're going to have to do it right. And if you're going to get it right, you might as well do it in Las Vegas. So yeah, it's been good. Other than the first year when the drains tried to kill, was it Carlos Sainz, I think it was, wasn't it? Came right up through the chassis and nearly took him out. But yeah, it's been entertaining. Last year's, I quickly double checked the highlights there just to be quick highlights just to see. It wasn't carbon fiber all over the place last year. It was more strategic and passing, and Sergio Perez going past three people at a place that he shouldn't be going around three people, or two wide, three altogether. So yeah, I'm pretty excited for it. It better be an exciting race because 4 o'clock in the morning for us to start watching this Grand Prix is insanely wrong, and I don't care if I'm a European and we get every other race in a good time. I'm telling you right now, that's bad, and more power to the Australians and all the other people in the world that have to watch pretty much every race at that time, because it's god awful. But by the time the race is finished, we've forgotten about the fact it's that time in the morning. And also, just an FYI, we won't be doing a review of the Las Vegas Grand Prix because what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, apparently. So, we're allowed to preview it, we're just not allowed to talk about it.
No, we're straight on to Qatar after that. James, what do you make of the Vegas circuit? Because, I mean, again, to look at it on paper, it's no great shakes, but it is long straight. It's freezing cold because it's in the middle of the night in the desert. And we said the same about Baku when it first came on the calendar as well. That looks crap, and it absolutely isn't. The Baku race is arguably one of the best of the year in terms of consistency. And we saw some brilliant overtakes here. We saw Charles Leclerc send it around. It was the outside of Sergio Perez in 2023 in the first race on the last lap. We've seen people bin it in the wall. If I'm not wrong, Lando binned it. So it throws up some changes, and it does at least lend itself to, I suppose, what you might call modern F1 sensibilities in terms of ridiculously long straights with DRS.
Yeah, it's a unique challenge, isn't it? I think with, like you say, the low grip, the low temperature, I don't think we really have that extreme combination. anywhere else. I think watching the last couple of races back, the tyre wears maybe a bit more than I expect, especially on the soft tyres. I don't think they suffer from grading, so that could come into effect. But I think with the hards, it seems like they could just run for hours and hours. But yeah, interesting challenge. It feels, it's the classic. I think a little bit like Baku, lots of little squiggly corners and then two really long straights to set things up. But actually, I wasn't particularly enthused by it. I'm more of a traditional circuit kind of guy, but I think actually, rewatching the races back, it creates a good bit of action. The walls are very nice and close, and there are a couple overtakes potentially without the DRS zones that you could get. There's a few quite long braking zones as they come around corners. I think into the chicane where they've got the massive orb. There's a few sections like that that you could potentially go up the inside of, but of course the cars are very big at the moment, so who knows? But a unique challenge. We'll see how it goes. I think that's also with the temperatures and the bit of tyre wear, you don't really know what's going to happen, even though we've got a couple of races under our belt. But I'm looking forward to it actually. And I'm actually I put my name down for the qualifying report, so I will definitely be getting up for that. To see if I get up for Sunday as well. Could be nocturnal this weekend, but we'll see how that goes.
Well, fair play to you for that. James mentioned there the temperatures. Obviously, this year is a little bit different because in previous years the races started at 10 p.m. local time on Saturday night, which makes it used to be 6 in the morning for us. It's now going to be 4 in the morning for us, which is a bit annoying. But it does mean that the temperatures, I'm not going to say they'll be warmer, but they won't be quite as icy cold for qualifying and the race. Couple of degrees here and there on a completely green track. Do you think that'll play too much difference, or are we expecting a lot of talk of tires and cold temperatures this weekend again?
Yeah, look, it's such a new track as well. Like the teams don't really have a good grasp as to what to expect year on year as it is already. So the change in time is going to add an extra dimension to that. It'll be interesting to see, as they said already, there was a bit of graining there last year. I know Charles suffered with it quite a lot, and that kind of scuppered his race a little. But look, he came back and he ended up well. Like he switched over to the hards and did a lot better on that too. So it'll be interesting to see how they go through the practice sessions and kind of what feel they get for it. But ultimately, yeah, the change in the time is going to add to that dimension as well. We haven't really seen any standout cars this year that are typically suitable for the Vegas conditions. So like that, we've seen the other tracks that could be comparable with the likes of Saudi. You've got China, Azerbaijan, Monaco Monza to an extent. And each of those have thrown up different styles from the teams. And like in Saudi, we've got an Oscar win. In China, another Oscar win, and actually, I think by 9 seconds, nearly 10 seconds back to Lando. Azerbaijan was Max. Obviously, the McLarens didn't have a great day that time, but like again, you're talking to hotter temperatures, where you would have expected the likes of Mercedes, who performed well there last year, but they're not necessarily showing such a high performance expected in the cold temperatures. They've actually kind of done better in the hotter temperatures this year.
We spoke about that last year. It's been the car's been more of a diva in all circumstances this year because they won in the hot and in the cold this year, and it like everyone's saying, oh, it'll definitely be Mercedes this weekend. It probably won't be.
No, so look, I do think that the change in time is going to add an extra dimension to it. So it is going to make for an interesting weekend, including practice sessions.
Yes, well, that's a good point. It is obviously a full weekend, so they will have all of their practice this weekend. The next sprint isn't until Qatar the following week. Looking back to last year, then, Coops, this is obviously the crucial race where Max Verstappen clinched his fourth and so far last Formula One World Championship because, well, I'm not going to say never, but it looks a little bit less likely this year now. But he did obviously finally slap Lando Norris back into the realms of dreams last year by, I think he only finished fifth in Vegas last year, didn't he? But it was enough by finishing ahead of Lando. Lando was sixth. It was enough for him to clinch the title last year. I think there was some mad connotations for how Norris could stay in it, but he basically needed to like dominate the weekend or at the very least be ahead of Max, and he wasn't. So Max won it here last year. Lando, however, cannot win it this year, although it's close. It is close. I think he's close enough to still be able to, like, he could win it in Qatar. I think is the earliest he could win it. But essentially he is, if I'm not wrong, he's 24 points clear of
Yep.
Oscar right now. But what he can do is at the race where Max won the championship last year, Lando can knock Max out of the championship this year if he outscores him by 9 points. So, first one to you, Coops. How does Max and Red Bull approach this weekend? Because it's really their last chance to have any sort of a hope of some silverware alive this year.
They just have to keep doing what they've been doing in this most of this season, and they have to ignore the fact that they could go out of the championship because, Max has kept him in it, but has there been a really 100% realistic chance that he was really ever in it? So you just don't get into the conversation. I think there was just there. I think Max kind of said, maybe now, not that race there, the one previous. But I don't think that they don't need to overthink it. I think it's just go about their business. The temperatures are a big part of this weekend. I had a quick look there. I think they're sitting somewhere around 16 degrees during the day and 9 degrees at night. On Sunday, it's 9 and 17. Friday's cold. It's 14 and 9 with 35% chance of rain. Who would have thought? Uh, so, they just have to get on with it. And just let's see if Lando and McLaren. I mean, the other thing is the psychological aspect of it. When was the last time McLaren were in a chance to win a drivers' championship? When we know that Piastri and Norris haven't been in one ever. Max has done this as his bread and butter now for the last 4 or 5 seasons, so he knows how to handle this pressure. He knows how to just get on with it. Even when he was at a chat like last year, knowing that if he gets a certain place, he's winning it. So yeah, I think Max and Red Bull won't have any specific special plan. Get in, get on with it, and if it shakes out, it shakes out. And if he's got a slim chance to stay in, he'll stay. Obviously, then that's good. But if I don't think it's a surprise. It'll be a surprise or disappointment necessarily if they get knocked out. I think they kind of know after last weekend that it's more chance they're not than going to be staying in. So.
Well, interestingly, and this is a sad one for any McLaren fans. The last time McLaren were in a proper drivers' championship battle was 2010. Really, if you think, obviously last year, blah blah blah, it doesn't really count because he wasn't in it. Let's be honest. 2012, they had the best car, but they had the worst engine by a mile. And it just kept going poop, which is annoying because the Red Bull was crap too. 2011, Button was comfortably clear of the rest of them, but Vettel with that blown diffuser was completely uncatchable, except in Canada, which is hilarious. And I love that race. If you haven't rewatched that, what have you been doing? But it was 2010 where it was down to the last race, and Hamilton was still in with a chance, and arguably possibly the favourite going into that, other than maybe Webber. And Vettel won that championship without ever having led it, which is a fun fact that I always love to bring up. But it is a long time since anyone in McLaren, nobody, I don't think anybody who currently works for McLaren would have been involved at that time, except for maybe a couple of engineers whose names we wouldn't necessarily know anyway. But yeah, so it's a long time. So, James, with that one in mind, then for Lando this weekend, so Max's approach will just be, I'm just going to win it if I can. If you get my way, it's to your deficit. I have less than nothing to lose here. Lando has a lot to lose, but equally, the ball is very much in his court now. He can win the championship without setting foot on the top step of the podium ever again. He still needs to be up there to keep himself in the conversation, but second in every single race, if Oscar wins them all, is still enough for Lando to win this championship. But this track doesn't suit them. He has been very open and honest about the fact that they're not expecting to be particularly quick this weekend. But at the same time, he's been cool, calm, and collected for several weeks now, even at races that they didn't necessarily go to Mexico thinking, I'm going to win this by 32 seconds. So what's going through Lando's mind, I suppose, in the run up to Vegas this weekend? He can't clinch the title, but he can put his hand on it, basically.
Well, I hope there's not too much going through his mind because we know he can be very hard on himself when he does. But I think for him, it's the mindset is just continue this run of form. It's get in the car, continue to do the things you've been doing, and I'd be surprised if he wasn't on the podium this weekend. Just the form he's been in and the assuredness that we've seen from him the last 6, 7 races, maybe since the summer break, or even really since his engine blew up. It seems to have changed his attitude slightly. That maybe he got to the point where he's like, well, I've got nothing to lose here, and it's just maybe changed it slightly. So I expect him to be, in and around it. The McLaren, like they say, is they haven't done particularly well in the last couple of years, but I do think it's going to be. I think especially last year, the front three, even actually Mercedes, that Max, Red Bull, Ferrari, and McLaren were all much closer than they are this year. I think McLaren have got that little buffer, but I think it was much closer last year. So I think it was extenuating. I think he did finish about 15, 20 seconds off the back of that group, I think, at the back end of last year in Vegas. So I think for Lando, he's just going to keep doing what he's doing, take one session at a time. And I expect him to still be up there because he's built this confidence in the car. And I think if we look at low grip circuits, we look at, Mexico is probably the most recent example. He dominated there. And like we say, the temperature is going to be very different. Baku was a bit of a struggle, but I imagine it's going to be more like Mexico than it was Baku, but who knows? I think this really is an unknown. I'm trying not to take too much into what happened last year because I think the cars are very different, the situation's very different. Like Ferrari, for example, do we expect them to be right up there like they were last year and the year before? Probably not, because that car was building those couple of years and it's sort of tailed, and it's tailed off this year. So I think he's just got to keep doing what he's doing, ensure that he's on the podium, which I think he will be. And then he's putting pressure on Oscar to perform, which he hasn't been doing the last 2 months. So I think it's just keep going.
Yeah, and he certainly hasn't. And that's a nice segue over to you, Saki, to bring it on to Oscar, because obviously he is still in this championship battle. 24 points is not unassailable. It'd be a little bit more assailable if his teammate wasn't in the form of his life. But if Lando's had a bit of there's not much going through his head in a good way. You can't really say that for Oscar. Obviously, I don't want to speak for the man, but recent form suggests that there is a lot going on in his head. And okay, I've said a couple of times I think this stems back to Silverstone, but really, 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 it stems to Baku, where he shunted the car in qualifying and then overdriving to try and recover it, shunted it again in the race. He's very lucky that Lando didn't really capitalize that weekend. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having a championship conversation. It'd be over by now, really. And Lando would be able to win it this weekend. But as it is, this is the first proper street track we've been to since Baku, where Oscar shunted it twice. And you have to imagine that just plays on his mind a little bit this weekend.
Yeah, definitely. Look, yeah, I know what you're saying. I still think it stems back to Silverstone in one way, shape, or another. I think Baku was more the symptom of his overdriving, pushing too hard, and thinking too much about it. As I said last week, this weekend, really, it's about the championship drive. And to be honest, it's different for each driver. For Lando, it's getting the car home. It's repeating last year. It's finishing sixth, getting the fastest lap at the end. I know it doesn't count for anything this year, but it showed that there was pace in the car. But like finishing sixth, it's safe. It's there. It's all he needs to do, in my opinion, really, to seal off this championship, regardless of where either Max or Piastri finish. For Piastri, the championship drive for him is to overcome everything that's happened really since Silverstone, pull out a like firsts in pretty much every session, just lay down that confidence, and then pull off a driver's life to win the thing where we're expecting the McLaren not to be able to show up. So for Piastri, he has it all to do. This will be really interesting as well to see how he goes, where his headspace is at, because look, we can say it again that the back end of the season doesn't seem to suit him. He is still, I know he's not technically a rookie, but like he's not been in Formula One that long, and to be able to be up there competing for the World Drivers' Championship and be in that conversation right to the death of the season it's a phenomenal achievement, and it has to be considered. He's gone well in similar tracks, as I've said. China, he smashed the field. He beat Lando by 9 seconds to come first in a 1-2 for McLaren. He did well in Saudi again, another kind of street track, long straights. So there's form there for him to do well. It'll be interesting to see, as we said, that McLaren doesn't tend to be suited for the Vegas night race. Does bring it back a couple of hours help. What is Oscar's mentality going into it? Has he had now a week off to refresh and just get his head back into the right mind frame and try and finish off these last three races in a much better form than he has to date. So really, really interesting to see how he goes about it.
Yeah, well, it certainly is, and we spoke last week after Brazil about there's a slight element of the move for on Kimi Antonelli, and I'm not going to bring that one up again. But there was a slight potential element of desperation, but not committing to it kind of thing. He needed to get the move done because he needed to not let Lando disappear, and then he did or didn't or did or
Yeah.
didn't. Do you know what I mean?
I think he needed to get the move done, but he also knew he needed to finish the race, especially
Exactly.
after crashing out on the sprint. So that hesitation kind of crept into the move. Yeah,
So the
look,
question becomes then, does that play a factor this weekend? Because let's say hypothetically, Lando's on pole, Oscar's second, right? They're going through within a couple of corners, they'll be on a big long straight. Oscar will probably get the slipstream and DRS. I don't think Lando's fighting it. And fair enough. If it's Oscar, maybe he does, but I don't think he fights too much. And if it's Lando on pole, Oscar in fourth, then again, if it's Max or Charles or George, whoever attacking Lando, I don't think Lando fights it. I said this with Kimi attacking him in the sprint. If there was a couple more laps and Kimi went for a move, Lando says, "Good luck, mate. Go win your first race." He doesn't fight that. I think it might be a bit different for Oscar, and this is what you brought it up last week, that the champions drive, it means different things to different people. For Lando, it's bringing it home. For Oscar, it's dragging that car to the top step even when it really doesn't deserve to be there. Do you really think he could do it? And we said let's not count him out because there's still plenty of time left. There's 83 points I think available. He's only 24 behind. But it's an easier position to be in to just say I'm not going to fight you.
it is an easier position to be in that technically, but I suppose if you think about it, these drivers, they don't want to just bring it home in sixth. Like
Oh, that's
it
true.
goes against their very nature to fight. Like you're talking about effectively fighter pilots on the ground. Like they're going for every last. It's bragging rights nearly at this stage as well. That's part of it too. So I get what you're saying. Is it easier? Like, is it easier to be in that commanding position, to be in first, and to have your direct champion, World Drivers' Championship opponent coming up behind you to make a pass and give him potentially even a little bit of hope coming into the last two races with a sprint that he could do something? Like, I don't know. I think
A crash favors Lando at this point as well, though. Does if Oscar's coming from behind, steams it up the inside, and it doesn't quite stick, Lando wins the championship. It's as simple as
it,
that.
it does, but also you don't want to kind of fall back too far where you're hanging around Stroll or somebody else who's going to make a risky move to do something for their team. So like you've got that aspect of it too. So like yeah, you don't want to be risky, but you're fighting your own instincts in that situation. I mean, we've heard Lewis say it before, like he loves chasing rather than being chased,
Mm.
and Max, I think to an extent as well. I think Max just loves winning. So it's just like it's apples and oranges. But I don't know. I wouldn't count Oscar out because, as I've said this year, he's shown a bit of form in similar style tracks. Again, long straights with the likes of Saudi,
Mm.
China. Azerbaijan really is his only kind of standout one. Like he did okay in Monza. Like there wasn't much doing in that race. There was one hairy moment really, and then there was the whole pit stop debacle. Won't get too delve down into that one, but like he showed good pace to be there to
Mm.
have overtaken Lando in that pit stop. Like I know he was a couple of seconds back. It was a slow pit stop, and then the undercut, etc., etc. But it wasn't like he was 7, 9, 12 seconds
Mm.
behind. Like there was pace there in the higher speed tracks. So he does have form in these types of tracks. It's now whether he can get out of his own head and really make it come to him.
Well, I've said it before. I'd love Lando to win this championship, but I don't want him to have an easy run to it. And it's a long, long time since we've had, well, a long, long time, 2021, but it feels longer ago since we've had a real championship fight go down to the wire. I know 2021 was the last lap, but realistically, that championship was over a long time earlier than that. And
But Sean, here's a question to you, McLando fans, right? Do you want it to be close at the end, where you can kind of people can bring back in the situations where Oscar was told that was a risky move. What did we tell you? And then the whole Singapore incident and the giving back the place and everything else McLando have done this season. Do you want it to be close that they can be brought back in and thrown back in the faces of McLaren, or do you want Lando to be so far ahead that those situations then just become a moot talking point?
No,
regardless of the headspace that has put Oscar in, because he's an equal number one driver when everybody knows he's not.
I don't know if everybody knows he's not, but
he knows he's not.
I take your point.
You know he's not.
He's not a number two driver. Like, he's not Mark Webber, despite the fact that he's managed by Mark Webber badly, I think. He's not Mark Webber. He hasn't had his wing taken off him and give it to Lando, for example, that we know of. But no, you're right. I take it back. I said that because I want Abu Dhabi to be interesting, and it won't be if there's no championship fight. But no, I want Lando to win this in Qatar now, actually, having said that. So yeah, good point. But Coops, a couple of players that could genuinely play a factor in this weekend, because it is such an unknown, but they are the ones who at least have form, are Mercedes and Red Bull. Not Red Bull, Max, but not Red Bull. Mercedes and Ferrari. They could definitely play a factor in this one, and Ferrari definitely have a point to prove this weekend. They had just the worst possible weekend in Brazil, not only with the like Charles getting so unlucky and Lewis's car shunting itself into non-existence, but they lost it. It was the worst possible weekend for that to happen because Mercedes stormed away with that weekend, and like shy of doing what Lando did. Mercedes could not have had a better weekend, and they're now 36 point clear. This is going to be an aggressive Ferrari this weekend. It kind of has to be. And we've now got Kimi Antonelli properly potentially in the conversation to get in the way this weekend.
Yeah, I'm going to put it out there. I think it's probably Mercedes' weekend to lose with just the way the cars run. Like, we know that Red Bull's Red Bull, Max will be a factor somewhere. McLaren are saying that, look, the car's not suited to conditions. Watch this, they'll come out and be 1-2 and dominate the whole weekend. Now, we've said that. And they will come out there and go, I don't know what happened. But I think it's probably between Russell and Antonelli for up the top. And I think Ferrari do have a point to prove. But the problem is Ferrari are just too good at Ferrarying it up, which is not an easy thing to say when you're Scottish, by the way. They just have a way, like everything could fall for them. And in the last couple of years, I'm not saying this season, there's always a moment, there's always something. Every season for the past few years, with Ferrari get into a point where you think this could be their weekend and something happens. And it's just either they're in the wrong place at the wrong time, like playing at Brazil, or they, like last year, they tell Sainz to come in and then they have to tell him to go out because the team wasn't ready. And you're like, you've got 2 minutes to organise this. Like, how does these things happen? Or putting the wrong tyres on in Brazil a few years ago when everyone else has one set of tyres and the other. So there's always this weird thing that Ferrari do, and I've said this numerous times. Ferrari have a tendency to overthink it because of the pressure Ferrari have from Italy, because they are a different beast. Mercedes make an asset, it's on what? Not even the front page if you're looking at the old school traditional newspapers you get. It's somewhere in the headlines, you know. If it happens to any other team. Ferrari, front page news. You've got reporters talking about it. It's probably on their news, you know, front page, first thing they talk about in their news bulletins. It's discussed. It's in coffee shops. It's just part of how Italy think. It's a national institution, and I think sometimes that's to a detriment because I think they play it too safe because they're too scared that if they make a mistake, they're letting down an institution. They're almost letting down a country to an extent. So I think that's part of maybe the subconscious, and I think they need to get rid of that and just think, do you know what? Damned if you do, damned if you don't. They might as well try something and see what happens in general, I think.
This stems into John Elkann, the CEO of Ferrari's comments after the Brazilian Grand Prix, which were, how do I put this not politely, tone deaf and stupid. He's saying Ferrari is dry. He basically, Lewis Hamilton said the car is a nightmare and it was a nightmare of a weekend, which it was for him, for the team. And then John Elkann comes out and says, my drivers, picking on Charles as well for some reason, need to drive more and talk less effectively. Now, Jenson Button said in a comment under Sky Sports' post on it, I think John Elkann should take his own advice. I think he's right. But I get what you're saying about like the pressure of Ferrari, and it's a religion in Italy as much as Catholicism is. Their religions in Italy go the Pope, Ferrari, and it's very close. Um, it's very close. The Pope has a Ferrari. But Elkin has been CEO since 2017. He's overseen, I don't know how many different team managers they've had since then. They now have the most successful driver in Formula One history. They had Sebastian Vettel, the absolute golden boy of Formula One at the time, four-time world champion, rediscovering all of his form, going up against the might of the best driver in history, statistically. And that failed. They brought in the absolute like the future world champion, the arguably quickest one lap driver Formula One has seen in a long, 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 long time in Charles Leclerc. Fight me, I'm right. He is. I've wearing the Ferrari jersey today because I thought this might come up. Anyone who thinks otherwise, I'd love to hear your reasoning for, but I think Charles is the best out and out quality. Like he's the fastest driver on one lap. His third place in the grid in Brazil proves that that car was a dog, and all of a sudden he's just spawning into third place. And he's wasting it again and again. And I think he's got a brilliant team principal in Fred Vasseur. So he does all of these things that on paper look fantastic for the team, and then he goes, "Shut up and don't talk. Just do what I say. Don't do like just sit down and toe the line." At the end of the day, mate, the book stops with you. You're in charge of the company, and you're failing every single year.
There's a couple of things that annoyed me. That statement was good for us because it was something we can put in our socials and get discussions going from a purely selfish point of view. But then when you broke it down, firstly, John Elkann was instrumental in getting Lewis Hamilton to Ferrari. He was the man that pushed it and said, bring him here. The jab was mostly towards Hamilton, but he couldn't single that out because he wasn't that stupid, because he's the guy that brought him, as I just said. Secondly, he talked about engineers and, we need to let the engineers have been great, the drivers are letting it down. Like, this car this year has a fundamental engineering issue. That's why it's not winning races, because when they won the race, they got disqualified, or when they were up at the front, they got disqualified because they had to put the car low enough for the aerodynamics to work, which wore out the plank. And it's the only time Lewis Hamilton was up at the front when he won the Chinese sprint. So the man needs to sit down with his shades and I saw a picture of him, he was wearing this weird ass like Italian silk shirt thing, and you're just like, mate, seriously. It's like an Italian kind of caricature. It's like, rein it in, like, you go behind your desk, sit down, shut up, and let the people that know what they're doing try and figure it out. Because that does not help anybody. Because you get the engineers are now going, the car's not working right, and he's telling us we're right. The drivers are going, you're saying to me, what? Like, do you think Lewis Hamilton cares if he leaves Ferrari in the lurch? Because, I mean, the man's a multi-millionaire and he's made his legacy. That regardless of what Lewis does, people will still say he's not the GOAT, or he's not this, he's not that. It doesn't matter. There's GOATs in every generation of Formula One. I don't care what anybody says. You cannot say that Fangio is the GOAT of all of Formula One, because the Formula One he raced in is different from the Senna, different from the Hamilton, the Vettel, when they were all peaks. They're peaks for a reason, because it works for them. So you can have generational, we can have like decades we could talk about. Anyway, so yeah, Lewis has done his bit. He's made his money. He's got his legacy. A lot of his records are probably never going to be beaten for a long, 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 long time. Very rare. I don't think a lot of them will be done within our generation anymore. So he needs to get back in his box and allow what needs to be done.
I think that's what it is, especially when you've got someone like Lewis Hamilton and like, okay, Ferrari, people say Ferrari is Formula One, Formula One is Ferrari. Yeah, okay, to traditional old school fans who've been around forever and who remember Enzo saying aerodynamics is for people who can't build engines. How'd that go for you? Lewis Hamilton is Formula One, though. The modern Formula One. Like he is the reason Formula One is popular in America. He is the reason Formula One is popular almost everywhere in the world. He is the name of Formula One. Like, who's the biggest movie star in the world? Lewis Hamilton is that of Formula One. It will hurt Ferrari a lot more for Lewis Hamilton to stand up and go, "I couldn't be bothered with you anymore. You're crap. I'm out." That will destroy Ferrari on a fan level, on an international, it's not going to affect the car brand, obviously, but the racing brand, like they will struggle. Sponsors will really, really hate that. Because if you have Lewis Hamilton all decked in his red, all of their sponsors that they're sponsors of Ferrari, it's great, it's amazing, they're in the pinnacle of Formula One. Lewis Hamilton comes out and goes, "Your crap, your crap, your crap, your crap, your crap, your crap." He's effectively pointing at all the sponsors of Ferrari and then pointing at the horse and saying, "Your crap, I'm out." Will he? Probably not. But I think John Elkann needs to realize that, okay, a lot of drivers are not bigger than Ferrari. I think Lewis Hamilton is. And I say this not as a Lewis Hamilton fan. Never been a Lewis Hamilton fan. I'm just a realist on the status of certain things in Formula One.
But also,
Say he won't do that.
uh, before you
Like,
move on quickly, when we talk about drivers, and sorry for interrupting, but you talk about drivers that turn around and say, "I'm leaving because of whatever the state of the team is." There was a Ferrari driver who done that and who's still on the grid, who actually came out. I don't know if you guys will know which driver I'm talking about, but he came out and said, "I left Ferrari because they are not ready to win." And it was Fernando Alonso, I think 2017, 2016, when about that time, when he came out and
Mm,
he left and moved on. He
2015, he
said,
moved to
I'm
McLaren.
he said they asked him, "Why did you leave Ferrari?" He said they're not ready to win.
Mm.
Obviously, the McLaren Honda wasn't anywhere near ready to win either, in
Yeah,
hindsight. However,
didn't he go on to say, as long as Ferrari continue to not win a championship, I was right to leave?
well, he
Effectively.
is. He's still
Yeah, he's
right.
still right to this day, even though he hasn't won Jack all
So,
since.
so,
But he's
so
still
for
right from a championship point of view.
and that's the thing that confuses me is Ferrari. Now, I have a soft spot for Ferrari. I was talking about it over the course of the season. You know, the Ferrari badge, the Ferrari cars. One of the first cars I remember as a kid was a Ferrari. Is it an F40? I don't know the picture. It's the one that Lewis Hamilton stood next to when he got his photos taken at
Yeah, 40.
the F40. For some reason, I know it, but the minute I said it, I'm like, did I get that right? It was one of my first Matchbox cars I got when I was a child. You see that badge, you love that badge. I've got one of the books that I bought for Formula One that has every single car that were made. I've read books about Enzo Ferrari. I've wrote articles about Ferrari and how they came about their name and how they were linked to a Formula One, a World War One fighter pilot. So I'm not saying this just to shit on them effectively. I'm saying it because it's a weird ass situation. They get legacy payments. They've got an unbelievable reputation. They've got all the resources. So what is it that they fundamentally do wrong every year? Last season they were there, and we're going, it's Ferrari and McLaren. Mercedes possibly, Red Bull, don't know, need to sort of the driver. And they've never been in the picture. So what is it they're fundamentally doing wrong? They've managed to engineer the good out of the car from last season to this season. It's not even big changes to regulations. So there's something that fundamentally Ferrari need to sort out. They've got the ingredients. It's like they've got all the right bits to build an IKEA unit, but they can't find the instructions, so they're kind of half-assing it and kind of, oh, I think that kind of goes there. That looks quite right, but it's a bit sugary. Nobody will notice that part. It's kind of like that. It's like figure it out because you can. And I think you're a liar if you've not got a soft spot to see Ferrari in a championship fight, regardless of which team you support, which driver you follow. It's like Williams and Ferrari. If you see Williams and Ferrari up the front, I mean, we're going back and we're hitting F1 access and we're going back to the historical times of them being at the front and when they've been up in the glory years. So I really, really, really want them to figure it out because I really want them to be up there. And Charles Leclerc, probably in the next couple of years, will start thinking, I'm ruining my
Next couple of
career for
years,
Ferrari.
next couple of months.
I think he's got a lot of thinking to do. Does he? Because, the commitment is great, but is it going to be stupid? Because, like, they need to figure it out. Because Lewis is at the end of his career. We know that. This is the next couple of years.
Well,
Charles is
it comes back on Ferrari as well because who do they have waiting in the wings? They have
well,
Ollie
they've got
Behrman.
Ollie Behrman.
That's it. He's not enough to fill two seats. Let's move on then from Ferrari to the midfield battle because it's not just the championship that is at stake this weekend. James, the midfield battle is really, really heating up and has done for the past couple of weeks with Mr. Behrman dragging Haas back into contention with a load of points. To Ocon's credit, he scored points in Mexico as well, but Behrman has been on incredible form. And as we said last week, Williams' fifth place is no longer secure as they thought it might be. And there's a big chance there. Williams are on fifth on 111 points. It's not too bad. RB are sixth on 82. Aston somehow are still seventh on 72. Haas are eighth on 70, and Sauber are lagging on 62. But it's that six to eight. RB, Aston Martin, and Haas. How do we think that's going to affect this weekend? Because with unknown conditions, really, unknown tires, certain tracks, certain suiting certain people, and just the drivers. We've seen Behrman do it. We've seen Hadjar do it. Just be up there in the top five on pure pace. They're just better than others at a certain weekend. Could we see something like that this weekend, and they get in the way of the championship fight a little bit?
Yeah, I've had a little bit of an itchy feeling the last day or so when we think about the predictions. You know, we've got our hot takes at the end. I feel like a bit of chaos happening this weekend. I must admit, and I'd quite like to. Maybe it's just wishful thinking, but I do think I've been looking at back at the old, the recent results, and I do 29 points for Williams. I feel is an unassailable because when you look back at the races, actually, most of the time, the top four teams, top three teams, whoever it is, takes up most of those positions. You do get, Behrman getting fourth, in Mexico, that does help. He got sixth or seventh in Brazil, but I think Williams are going to be okay in that 29 points. That feels good. I think the real juiciness is going to be Racing Bull, Aston Martin, Haas, and Kick Sauber, who are 20 points apart all together. So that's a smaller gap than it is from Racing Bulls to Williams. So I just feel there could be some chaos happening, some interesting results, and we'll get to my bold prediction later. But I think it could be an interesting one. I think we've seen a few mixed up grids recently as well, with there were some big teams dropping out early in qualifying. So I think what really needs to happen here, I think we're looking at the teams, is which teams have two drivers really consistently being up there. And I think Racing Bulls is at the moment the one that stands out there. I think it seems like Kick Sauber, Hulkenberg has a good weekend, or Bortoletti has a weekend there, that they seem to both get points. I feel the same with Haas. I think Behrman's been outperforming Ocon. Ocon does get into the points, but it feels like it's one or the other. And the same with Aston Martin. When was the last time Stroll was in the points? You probably tell me it was in Brazil, but I just think that Racing Bulls have that chance to, if they could catch Williams, but I think they're gonna solidify that sixth place. I think both of those drivers are taking like a seventh and eighth and building those small points up, but I'm going to tease there could be a big swing, but in those four teams below Williams, I think that's where the juiciness is really going to be.
Yeah, it certainly will be. And as you mentioned, them like there's a we mentioned the word earlier on, bragging rights in the drivers' championship for drivers in those teams as well. It's kind of everyone below Alex Albon. Albon's eighth on 73 points. He's 30, if I've done my maths right, ahead of Hulkenberg, who's on 43. So that's a chunk. Now, something dramatic happens and Nico Hulkenberg goes and wins a race. Unlikely. He still won't be ahead of him. So Albon looks pretty safe there in eighth, but Hulkenberg, Hadjar, Behrman, Alonso, Sainz, Lawson, and Stroll are separated by 11 points.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's
There's
good
a
fun.
lot of swings to be had there in the fight for the bragging rights of finishing in the top 10 this year.
Yeah, that's gonna be exciting. And I think that makes it quite nice because even the gaps are quite small. That the points they're fighting over are relatively small, but that's what makes those performances like Behrman's been putting in the last couple of races
Mm,
so important, because he suddenly chucks himself back in that fight as well. So it could be anyone's game really, down to ninth to. Do we say Ocon's still in it in 16th and 30 points? That's 13 points
very possibly, yeah.
possible. So yeah, that's the juicy part. Well, apart from the top, obviously, we've spoken enough about that. So I think that the two Racing Bulls and Behrman are going to be the ones that probably stand out. I'd like to see the Williams get back into some form. I think in Mexico they looked really good during practice and qualifying. Well, not much qualifying, but they really looking good, and they have bad qualifying and haven't been able to catch up. But I think it feels like this sort of circuit is sort of built for Williams. You
Mm.
know, low
The
downforce. They've
Albon
got great
DRS
heights.
train.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we were maybe expecting that in a bit in Mexico, because that has that big straight, and we just didn't quite see it. You couldn't quite see it. So I'd like to think the Williams are going to get back into it. Could they get on the podium? Who knows? We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting. There's a lot to play for this weekend, and the great thing about this weekend is that we genuinely don't know
Mm.
how it's going to play out. Which I suppose, I mean, as I said at the very, very start, when Vegas came on the calendar, we all questioned, is this just a soulless cash grab? And yes, it sort of still is, let's be fair. But at the very least, the time of day, the time of year, the conditions, the fact that the track lends itself to overtakes means that at the very least we've been sitting here for about an hour and we've had plenty to talk about the Las Vegas Grand Prix. It's only been on the we've only had two races there. We've had plenty to talk about, and I'm pretty sure our review, even if we're technically not allowed to do it, according to Coops' rules, we'll have a lot to talk about as well. I don't foresee this being a boring race. I'm not going to get up at 4 in the morning to watch it, but I don't foresee it being a boring race. Now, last thing for this weekend, and I want you to have a think about this while I get into the schedule for the weekend. So we do predictions. So have thoughts about your predictions, your poll, your top three, and your wild shout. But I also want your rankings of the special liveries for this weekend, please. There are four special liveries. If you're watching us on YouTube, I'm going to flash them up on screen now. We've got Alpine, which doesn't look like much, but have a look at the wheels. We got Sauber, which also doesn't look like much unless you're looking at it from above. You see the checkered flag there. We've got V-Carb, which is lovely and pearlescent and Vegasy, and Williams, which have gone for the all black look. So have a think there, gents, about your rankings of them as well, while I give everybody else the times for this weekend. Now, I'm only going to do the live times. Check out Sky Sports F1 if you want the replay times or record it and watch it back, because let's be honest, that's how we're all going to do it. But if you are working late or you're mad enough to be staying up late, here are the times for this weekend. Practice 1 is on Friday morning, again, UK Ireland times, Friday morning at 12:30 in the morning or Thursday night. Practice 2 is on Friday morning at 4 o'clock in the morning. Lovely. Practice 3 will be on Saturday morning at 12:30 at night. Again, half past midnight on Saturday morning. Qualifying will be at 4 a.m. on Saturday morning. And the race will be at 4 a.m. on Sunday morning, which, as I said earlier, unfortunately is 2 hours earlier in the day than it has been previously. The Vegas race has been pulled forward. Vegas time, it used to start at 10 o'clock Vegas time. It's now 8 o'clock Vegas time, which means it comes forward to 4 in the morning for us over this side of the pond. So, they really are. They're going hell for leather on a whole year worth of payback in one night. So there we go. That is the weekend times. If you are mad enough to be staying up, let us know. How did you do it? Did you enjoy it? And are you a little bit of a gremlin now, having not slept all night? Right then, predictions, please. Let's start with the predictions and rankings, please. Let's start with the. We will start with the special liveries. Coops, give me your rankings then of the special liveries.
Okay, so Steak will be last because all they've done is put flag on their normal livery, from what I can see. No, actually Alpine. Sorry, Alpine's last because I can't figure out what they've done. So, so
They put
yeah,
poker chips on the wheel covers by the looks of it. That's about it.
so that's that. The next one up will be Steak, and then it'll be Racing Bulls, and then it's William.
Interesting. James, do you agree with that, or do you switch something around there?
I've got a little switch. I agree with Alpine. Yeah, I'm not sure what they've done unless MSC has not been a sponsor the whole year. That's the only thing that jumped out at me. Stake, yeah, will be third, mainly because it's just they've got a cool livery anyway. And I agree with Coops. They just put some flags on it. They probably should have some flags on it anyway, as they're a racing team. It might help them go quicker. But I'm going to go Williams second and VCarb first. Williams, I think, looks very nice. The black looks, it could look lovely under the lights, but the VCarb it could shine as well. And I think I just really like the engine cover decal, especially from the top. I know we won't be seeing them too much from the top, but I can imagine from that helicopter angle it would look fantastic with those the racing balls connecting at the top. So I'm going to give it to racing balls, and I hope they have very similar driver suits to the car because that would look funny as well.
That would look pretty cool.
Yeah.
Sock, have you got your rankings there?
Yeah, so to be honest, I don't know what Alpine have changed either. It just looks like the Alpine. So last. I do like the Stake, so it's a hard one for me to go between second and third on this, but I probably will put the Stake in third, then with the Racing Bull second. I just think that kind of purple blue glow off the Williams it's a beautiful look. I'd love to see it more than one weekend.
Yep, I'm in full concurrence with it. I've literally zoomed in on the Alpine here to see if they change anything else. The wheel rims, they do look like poker chips. Okay, wow, clever. It's Vegas. Whoop-de-doo. But it's Mood Casino or Modo Casino, which I have to imagine is not a casino on the strip. It's probably some seedy online gambling thing. Let's be fair, it's Alpine and it's Formula One. That's probably what it is. But I agree. I think the steak looks good, but their livery looks good anyway, and the flat it looks much better from the overhead shot where you can actually see the checkered flags. I love the V carb. I think it looks fantastic. I think it will look good under the lights, but that Williams by a landslide. I think that is one of the nicest liveries I've seen in Formula One in a long time. And with the announcement that from next year there'll be a directive that says that 55% of the cars have to be covered in paint or stickers. They can't do all carbon like this, which is very much what that Williams is. It's
What are the
all car.
Alpine going to do?
No
What?
idea.
I mean, not.
Williams, by the looks of it, that's not naked carbon. At least in that render, it doesn't look like naked carbon. It looks like a black paint. And if that's the case, fair play to them. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. I do worry that all black will go away. Not necessarily a bad thing, but when it's done properly like that, I think more of this. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. And fair play to Williams. I can only hope that we just see lots of it on TV this weekend, but I'm kind of fearful that we won't. So let's get into our predictions then for pole, top three, and a wild shout. So, Coops, we'll come to you first.
Okay. Paul, Russell. Top three will be Antonelli, Russell, and Max Verstappen.
Kimi in first?
Yes.
Okay. And your
And
wild shout?
well, I mean, I don't know what I can top that, but in all fairness, I think that Lando and Norris will have some kind of contact.
Lando and Norris, he's going to hit himself, is he?
Lando and Norris is going to cut himself up. Yeah, I just realised what I said there. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, sorry, will come to blows at some point during the race.
Okay, that's interesting. But your wild shout there really is Kimi Antonelli just winning his first race. You've buried the lead on that one a little bit. So let's see if that comes to pass. That'll be
I
really
wonder, I
interesting.
wonder, I wonder what my most impressive rookie will be over the weekend.
Well, now that you've said that, it won't be Kimi Antonelli, unfortunately.
Well,
James, your predictions, please.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go. Charles Leclerc in pole. I think he just pulls out a lap out of nowhere. Top three. I'm gonna go Verstappen, Norris, and then I'm going to go. Oh, it's a real toss up. I'm gonna go big. I'm gonna go Ollie Behrman. I'm gonna go chaos, proper chaos.
Oh,
And my crazy prediction is that someone that hasn't been on the podium before gets on the podium. I hope it's Behrman, if not someone else.
okay. So a first time podium
A
sitter.
first time podium sitter.
First
Yeah,
time
yeah.
ever or first time of the year? Because I need to
No,
know if we're letting
first
you
time
away if
ever.
Lewis Hamilton gets one.
No, first time ever.
Okay, that is an interesting shout. You're backing yourself up on your top three shout there. Suck, your calls, please.
Yeah, so I'll give you pole because it's straightforward. So I agree with James that I'm going to go with Charles to
Come on, Soppy, come
get the
on.
pole. Now, my wild shout kind of explains my top three, but I do have some stats and reasoning behind it. So
Okay.
this is science.
Nice.
So I'm gonna take you on a bit of a journey before I give you my top three. So anytime I'm going to give you my winner first, okay? Because I can't explain this story without doing it. But anytime George Russell has won a race, there has always been a bigger story
Behind
than
him,
him
yes,
winning
that's
a
true.
race. So
That's
you
absolutely
had
true.
So you had in Sao Paulo in 22, the Max and Lewis coming together after the restart. In Austria in 24, the Max Lando crash
Max
out.
Lando.
You had Vegas 24, you got Max winning as world drivers. You've had Canada, the Lando crash. And you've had Singapore, the Oscar Lando, and then the McLaren winning the world drivers. So there's always been a bigger story. So
Jesus, poor George.
I think George is going to win, but I think the story is going to be a double Ferrari podium with Lewis beating Charles. So that's my top three: George, Lewis, Charles.
And you're counting that as your wild shout as well, a double Ferrari podium?
Yeah, pretty much. All the eggs in one basket.
You really committing to that one. I unfortunately, gentlemen, are going to be really boring with this prediction.
Tut.
Conditions or not, I am sticking with the man in form. I'm going to say Lando Norris will be on pole, and he will win it from George Russell and Oscar Piastri. And my wild shout is that the Williams double DNF in that gorgeous car.
Yeah.
They'll take each other out in the first corner, and you'll just
Yeah.
never see them.
It's just how
Yeah.
how special liveries work in Formula One usually.
They won't be able
Think
to-
of
they won't be able
Mercedes.
Shout.
They won't be able to see each other. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Is
exactly.
that
Yeah,
really
it's
a
dark.
wild shout?
Well, they
Is
haven't
that
done it in a
really a
while.
Well, I know, but like I mean, Albon didn't finish last
Oh.
time out.
With our predictions, we listen and we don't judge. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's just I've jinxed it now because I absolutely adore that car, and they're probably going to crash out on turn one of lap one, and I'm never going to see it ever again. And they've wasted all of that time, effort, and design money, which they clearly didn't do that in Excel. So fair play to them. James Vales has really corrected how that team works now. But yeah, that's going to be my wild shout. That all I'm going to get of that car is some pictures, really. There we go. That will do it for our Vegas preview show. Thank you very much for joining us. Hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, hit subscribe wherever you are listening, especially if you're on YouTube. Hit subscribe to us over there. Everything fun, all one word. And you'll be in with a chance to win a Lego Speed Champion set for free as soon as we hit 500 subscribers. Thank you very much for joining us. As always, myself and Coops joined by James. Thank you, James.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sock.
Thank you, gents.
And adios, Coops.
Cheers. I've got the
We'll
rest
be-
of the Scotland game to watch.
Yeah. Good luck,
just-
Scotland.
Denmark have just had a man sent off. It's currently 1 each. So, come on to Scotland!
We've been everything I've won. Thank you very much for joining us. Enjoy the Vegas Grand Prix, whether you're getting up for it like a mad person or watching it on replay like a normal human. And we will chat to you next week. Have a good one. Bye now.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.